This Adobe Premiere Basics tutorial. This one, I just want to show you a couple things that I've had students kind of run into along the way. Sometimes you guys will be shooting with multiple cameras, right? Like somebody might be shooting on their phone, and then you'll have a camera as your A camera, and then like a phone is like a secondary angle. And sometimes you're going to find out that like your footage doesn't quite match when you get into Adobe Premiere and you try to put it all on the same timeline. So one of the things that people run into is the frame sizing. Okay, so when you're here and you're on your clip, you might find that this clip isn't the right size. Okay, so what's going to happen is it'll be too small or too large, and you're like, okay, I don't know how to fix this. Okay, so what you have to do is you have to obviously you want your blue cursor to be over the footage that you want to work with. You want to make sure that you highlight the footage. And there's two different ways you can go about doing this. You can either come up here and go to the effects workspace, or you can come over here, and if you see effects controls right here, you can just click on it there. Now, one thing I want to do is I want to double check that that's the shot that I'm working on. So I'm just going to double click it because this is the footage I should be working on right here. So I'm going to double click. So now it shows it. And then I'm going to go to effects control. Now, let's say you, sometimes you're going to run into it where you put your footage on the screen and you're trying to match it with another camera, and this is what you get. And sometimes you're going to do it, and this is what you're going to get. So the place to correct it is to go to your effects control and look at scale. And then you can manipulate the scale of the shot so that they both match each other. That is definitely something that students have run into along the way, and they weren't sure how to rescale their shot. In here, you can also do other things. You can like reposition your footage. So let's say I wanted this shot to be a little bit tighter, and I wanted to reposition it a little bit so I can make it more of a tighter close-up. Then I could, right? If I go back out to the original, then we'd have to reposition it. So depending on how high of a resolution your footage is, you can kind of reframe things a little bit if you'd like to. Another thing you can do in this same spot is, let's say I wanted to do a transition where this faded up from black, but I don't want to do it with a transition. I want to do it manually. So I can come in here and find a spot where I want the transition to start. And then I'm going to be using opacity. So I'm going to click on this little clock right here. And when I click on it, it's going to create a mark. And that mark is for 100% opacity, which is 100% brightness, or like its translucentness. Okay. So then I'm going to back up to my first frame. So there's my first frame of the shot, and I'm just going to drag this down to nothing. And now you can see right there it added another mark. And now there's some animation between this mark and this mark. So if I hit play, the shot just fades up from nothing. And I can manipulate that. Let's say I wanted that to be a little slower. I can grab that keyframe, move it over, and now my fade up will be longer. Okay, so so that works, and everything's all good there. That's something else that people sometimes want to know how to do. The other thing is just kind of how to manipulate the timeline so you can see things, right? So let's say I wanted to see more of a particular frame. So see how I can actually grab in between here and make the different lines in my sequence bigger or smaller. So now that I did that, now you can actually see those marks on the actual timeline, and I can actually grab them here and manipulate them here if I wanted to. Okay? I can do the same thing with my audio files, right? So there's my audio files. Right here, this is that audio that we keep hearing. That's the song, and see how it's kind of distracting? Because it just comes in and then it's not there anymore, right? Then it goes away. So if we wanted to unlink our audio from our video to make it so that we can disconnect something without deleting something we wanted, right? So I'm going to grab this and take it all the way back up to our line there. So let's say I'm going to grab the footage. I'm going to right click on it. So I'm on a Mac, so it's control click. and this window pops up. And right here it says unlink. So I'm going to click on unlink, and now my footage is not connected to my audio is not connected to my video. So now if we look at it, now we don't hear that music coming in and out, right? Now I know we did a little section on audio, so there's going to be some stuff in there that'll work for you too. But this is just a way to show you how to unlink one to the other. And if I click on that and delete it, it won't be there anymore. And then I can just really quickly go back over here. Here's my song that I had, and I'm just going to pick that song in, and now you're going to hear the song play over the whole thing. Okay, so now we can hear that music in there, right? And the song's way too long, so I'm just going to grab it and bring it way back into my clip, and then I'm going to scroll back out so everything matches. And then the other thing you've probably figured out is that the sound was too loud, right? So I can do the same thing here, and I can make that audio clip, the music, the song, much bigger, and now I can see the volume line. So now I can go back and play it, and while I'm playing it, I can just pull down that sound and make it a normal level. So now we can hear that dialogue line a little better. So her line right here is on this little bit of audio. So she starts talking right about so it's somewhere about in here. She's going to start to talk. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this little pen tool, which is another little trick. It's the same thing as doing a keyframe mark. Is I'm going to set a mark, and you can see in the waveform she starts talking right there. So I'm going to put another keyframe right about where she starts talking, and I'm just going to raise the volume a little bit. Okay, so those are some other little tricks and tips to kind of navigate through your footage, and hopefully you find those helpful. If you have any other questions, please let me know. If you have any other issues or things that pop up, I can definitely help you, but those are a few things that I think will be useful to you as you start to use Adobe Premiere.